I have a dilemma. The more iPhones that get released, the question of which one to actually get is becoming harder and harder. And this year, with the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the iPhone 12 mini, the decision is, it's harder than ever for me. I'm torn. I'm torn between getting the best camera Apple has to offer, which typically is what I'm looking for in an iPhone, or choosing the phone that, actually fits in my pocket comfortably and I can use with one hand. Now, of course, there's the most obvious difference up front, which is the price. There's a big difference between the iPhone 12 mini and the iPhone 12 Pro Max. But if you're already in the market for a 12 Pro Max device, like I am, now you have to choose between which features matter most. So this is a first. It's a two-part video. This is my process of finding the perfect iPhone for me. This time it's going over the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and in my next video, I'll be going over the iPhone 12 mini. But now that I have both of these phones in my hands, the reasons I thought I would want this phone are actually a lot different than I expected. The big story here, and I think the reason why most people want the 12 Pro Max, is the new camera system. I figured instead of just testing the camera in my normal situations, I'd go on a little trip. We're here in Joshua Tree National Park, one of my favorite places. And I think this situation exemplifies why I care about having a good phone camera, because I'm doing stuff like this a lot and I always want to be able to, create while I'm on the go. This is an almost entirely new camera setup, and you can tell. The lenses on the back are huge, and when you look at it on the phone itself, you can tell, but then when you put it next to a regular 12 Pro, there's a big difference here. And that's because the main sensor is bigger, and it uses sensor shift stabilization. So instead of using the lens to stabilize it, the entire sensor shifts. Plus, on the zoom, you now have a 2.5 times zoom instead of the regular 2 times that we're used to. You also have the LiDAR sensor, you have the ultra wide, which is not really changed from last year, which is a little bit of a disappointment. But besides that, from a hardware perspective, this is a big upgrade. The question I have though is this camera worth it? In my mind, if Apple's going to split off the cameras in the 12 Pro line and really tout this one, there's got to be a reason for it, right? This should be the absolute best camera ever on a phone. But is it? And for me, what I'm looking for in a phone camera in specific is one that I can really take with me everywhere. I've said this before, especially when talking about the 12 Pro. Having those features, which granted I don't use every single day, they're still important to me because I do use them. I do use the telephoto camera. I do use the ultra wide. I use most of the features that come on the pro level phones. So here are some shots that I took on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Nothing fancy. These are just going throughout my day and taking pictures as I go. So when it comes to photos, if I'm completely honest, I'm a little disappointed. Like I said, when Apple decided to split the line for the 12 Pro, you would expect that the 12 Pro Max would have a crazy camera, and the differences just aren't there. I'm not noticing all that much. Now, that being said, this is probably still the best camera out there. It's just, the differences year over year aren't huge, and compared to the 12 Pro, it's negligible. Low light is one area though where there is a noticeable difference. It's not a night and day difference, no pun intended, but if you look for it, you can see changes. The main thing is you just get more detail in the photos, especially when you're in deep fusion mode, there's just more detail there. Plus, if you're in darker situations and you need to use night mode, you don't have to hold the phone still for quite as long because the bigger sensor is gathering more light. It's a noticeable difference, but it's not as if you can suddenly see in the dark. Now, photos aside, that's one thing, and that is important to me, but equally, if not more important, is video. And that's still one of the reasons why an iPhone, for the foreseeable future at least, is going to be in my pocket. Whether it's this one, the mini, doesn't matter. One of them is going to be used. And it's just because it looks so good, and especially now with Dolby Vision HDR, and more importantly to me, 10-bit, so I can actually edit the footage a little bit. It has more leeway. The video here just still looks great. I've been filming a lot of this section with the 12 Pro Max, and it's awesome. Real quick before we continue, I want to thank this video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers thousands of classes in any creative field you can think of. So illustration, photography, videography, business, anything in that creative realm, Skillshare has a class for you. And what's great is that they offer classes for various skill levels. So if you're just starting out, or if you're an expert looking for just a little bit of a new skill, you'll be able to find something to suit your needs. A great class right now, especially if you just got a new iPhone, is iPhone photography, how to shoot and edit conceptual photos on your phone. And classes like this can help you take what you're already doing to the next level. You can get these classes in Skillshare Premium for less than $10 a month, but for the first 1,000 of you to check the link down in the description, you'll get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. So go check it out and get learning. So for me personally, the biggest downside and my real apprehension to the Max is the size. But you know, that's a personal thing. It really just comes down to how you use your phone and what you use it for. If you're the kind of person that uses your phone as your main computer, or you know, you have vision issues so you need a big display, or you consume a ton of content on your phone, then having this 6.7-inch screen can be extremely helpful and useful. For me, I don't necessarily use my phone that way. Lately, I've been trying to use my phone less and less. My phone is not my main computer. I do, of course, consume content on it and do create on it, but it's not my main source. I use my phone as the device that, you know, I can always fit in my pocket and have with me, and I use it when I need to, rather than it being the device I'm on all day. That's just how I use my phone. So, you know, going in, I was worried about the size of the Max, but the more and more I use it, the less worried about it I am. Honestly, it's not that much bigger than the iPhone 11 Pro Max, even though it seems like it is because of the bigger screen size. So if that's what you were worried about, it's not really going to be an issue here. I do think there's a little bit of an illusion going on here because of the new design, which I think contributes to that, you know, slightly bigger feeling. Since it's squared off, it feels more like a brick instead of like a smooth curve. But I think that's a great trade-off because I still love this design, like I talked about in the iPhone 12 Pro review. Plus, I got it in the silver color here, and I'm just gonna say it, this is the best color. I absolutely love it. It's very elegant and shiny, and with that shiny comes fingerprints. But for me, it is worth the trade-off. I love the design of this phone. I mean, really, besides the camera and the size of the phone, the differences between the regular 12 Pro and even the iPhone 12 and 12 mini are few and far between. You're getting many of the same features. So I asked myself, if the camera's not that much better, and the size is a pro-con depending on how you're using the phone, is this phone really worth the premium? Well, maybe. So here's my hope, and granted, this is a hope, not an expectation, but it would be cool to see Apple do this. So when you look at the Pro Max, I mean, this has the most potential out of all the iPhones released this year. If you look at the size of the screen, I mean, that could be used for a lot. Split screen multitasking, or more widgets, or at the very least, more icons on the home screen. But if you look at it right now, it's basically just a blown up version of what we have already with, you know, the smallest iPhone. But that easily could be updated with software. Think of it like a kind of mini iPad OS. Now, is Apple going to do that? Probably not, but, you know, one can hope. And going along with potential software updates, you know, the camera hardware itself is excellent, and obviously the processing is excellent as well, but it can only get better from here. With software updates and improvements, Apple can only make this camera even better than it already is. Plus, you get things like the bigger battery, the biggest in the 12 line, which is going to lead to probably the best battery life, depending on your situation. But you also get those same features like MagSafe, 5G water resistance. This is just the most well-rounded phone that Apple has in their lineup right now. But it just feels like it could do a bit more. And that's probably because the other phones in the line are just so good. If the Max was the only iPhone that Apple made, well, I mean, there would be no room to compare to other iPhones, but now we have 3 others. So is the iPhone 12 Pro Max worth it? Yes, absolutely. It is not perfect, of course, but if you're coming from anything older than the iPhone 11, I mean, you're gonna love this phone. It's great. But if you're like me and you're looking for kind of, you know, the perfect iPhone for 2020 that really straddles that line of all the features across the line, well, that question just isn't answered yet. I was genuinely surprised with the things that I liked and didn't like about the Max. It was almost completely the opposite of my thoughts going in, and that's a pleasant surprise. And so with that, it's time for step 2 in the process. I'm going to switch to the iPhone 12 mini and see if that's what I was looking for, or if this iPhone 12 Pro Max was really the right one all along.